CANAM Fantasy Football Podcast. What's going on, YouTube? It's good to see you guys in beautiful virtual podcast spacing. We've got Tyler, we've got Aetan, we've got Ryan, and we've got a little bit of a mock draft that we're going to be going through. Now, as you can see here, it's a 12-team, 0.5 point per reception league. And we're just going to go through all of our picks in the first 10 rounds. This is episode 1, so we're going to go through rounds 1 through 5. And we're going to go ahead and start off with Aetan in the 4th spot. Aetan, you went with Alvin Kamara, who tore something in his knee back in week 6 of last year. And he also suffered a high ankle sprain that led him to miss 2 games. So, of course, his numbers from last year are not as good as we had expected them to be, but we're expecting a bounce back. What are you thinking when you're drafting Alvin Kamara this year?
There's definitely the concern, and quite honestly, I think that he's going to be fine. He doesn't have a real big history of this, and he played through some of these injuries, and he did come back quicker than some players from these injuries. So I think he's a little bit more durable than people think because of his willingness to fight through his injuries. But when you got a pick in the first 4, it's kind of just to close your eyes and take the top guy, because the first 4 are pretty much guaranteed to go as the first 4. So if for some reason someone else took Kamara and then Zeke dropped or Barkley dropped, I would be just as happy taking any of those guys. This is a foolproof pick, and it's pretty brain dead. You just see the button and you click it immediately. You don't have to give it much thought.
Yeah, definitely. I think that top 5, top 6 is pretty automatic. One of the interesting things that happened in this particular mock draft, though, is one of the people in the top 6, in my opinion, actually dropped to Tyler, and that's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Everybody who's watched the podcast knows that Clyde is my boy. And, of course, we all know about me nattering about Andy Reid and his top 18 fantasy running back finishes. By the way, it's only 5 times that he didn't have a top 18 fantasy running back in the last 21 years. Only 5 times. That's crazy. So, Tyler, what was your thinking? Were you just simply thinking, hey, let's make sure that Ryan doesn't get Clyde?
Oh, that definitely is a factor in anything I do, is to make sure I can mess up with what I'm planning to do. But no, I guess I've been hanging out with you too much on these podcasts because I'm starting to come around to your thinking right now. Clyde's a lot of positive feedback coming back from training camp. Andy Reid thinks this guy can tote the rock. He's not afraid to give him the ball, and I think that's going to translate into plays on the field. As far as other options go, I do want to go running back if Michael Thomas is gone at this point. So I feel like Clyde is a safer bet just because he plays on such a better offense than Miles Sanders currently does, and I'm not a big Joe Mixon guy myself, so Clyde was an easy pick for me in this spot right now. He's we did a running back show just a bit ago, and I had Clyde ranked way down. I think he was barely in my top 10. He might have been 11 for me, but as you can see, I got him in my top 6 now. So yeah, I'm starting to join the bandwagon with you, bud.
Well, everybody, hop aboard the Clyde Edwards-Helaire hype train. I'm the conductor. Next up, so here I am in the 12 spot, and I'll be honest, I feel like the 12 spot is a really difficult place to draft. It ended up that Julio Jones fell to me, so I dig that. You're looking at 6 straight seasons where Julio has posted more than 1,390 yards. It's a beautiful offense. The Falcons are going to do some serious noise for sure in this year. So there's no question that you're looking at a player that is going to be a wide receiver 1 more often than not, and that's the most important thing. And then you go down. I decided to go with Josh Jacobs for my first running back pick. I could have went with Kenyon Drake there, but I just went with Jacobs because despite the fact that there is a ton of pass-catching running backs that have been drafted by Las Vegas, I still feel like you take a look at Josh Jacobs and the way that his production went last year, you can have a no-doubter top 10 running back finish out of Jacobs just by the way that they use him already. You add a couple more passes in there, which I don't think is outside of the realm of possibility. he is going to be his ceiling is probably, I don't know, top 4, top 3. So I felt like Jacobs in that spot was the way I wanted to go, especially if I'm going to be running away from those biker gangs. I want someone running with me like a Josh Jacobs. Next up, we've got Travis Kelce, of course, on that high octane Kansas City Chiefs offense, and you went with a little stack there, Tyler, of Chiefs.
Yeah. As you can see, I'm pretty big on them this year. I think they're going to be very the offense is going to be run very similar to what it did last year, which was a top 3 offense, and I think they could even push for the number 1 spot this year. Travis Kelce is obviously a huge part of that. Regularly, I'm not big on tight ends, but at that point in the draft, the safe bets for wide receiver and running back were already taken. I was tempted by DeAndre Hopkins a little bit, but I just feel with that being in a new scenario with with a change in preseason from a normal year, it just seems like too much of a risk for that high of a pick. Travis Kelce, you're guaranteed points every single week. That guy's going to get yards every single week. And having a big floor in your tight end position is very unique. There's only 2 guys in the NFL that can give you that. So why not make a nice safe spot for you in your tight end spot?
Absolutely. My back pocket stat with Travis Kelce is that he finished as the wide receiver 11 if he was a wide receiver. So I think that is huge. That is amazing safety for a spot, a slot that is typically difficult to find scoring in. Someone who didn't have trouble finding some scoring last year was Aaron Jones, and that's the next pick that we've got Aetan doing. What was it, 15 touchdowns last year for Aaron Jones?
No, higher. He was at 19.
15 on the ground, 4 in the air?
16 on the ground, 3 in the air. Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
Yeah,
so
and you know what? I don't anticipate that to happen again. Like those are really crazy numbers, but I could easily see him hitting 10 touchdowns on the ground, and I could see him hitting 3 to 4 in the air. So even if you take away 4 touchdowns from this guy, he's still going to finish as a RB2 / fringe 1. So he's very safe. I think we've mentioned the term revenge tour with Rodgers. Well, they did the same thing with Aaron Jones. So I think these 2 guys, Aaron Rodgers and Jones, are both going to have great seasons because they're both a little pissed off at what their management did. Whether that actually produces on the field, we'll have to see. But with a healthy Davante Adams, I think this offense is actually going to be a little bit better than it was last year. Last year, they won a lot of tight games. They were probably the flukiest. Were they 10 wins or were they? Yes. I forget their record. Was it 10? Yeah, they were probably the flukiest 10-win team we'd seen in recent history, but there's no reason to suspect that they won't be able to get back up there with players like Jones, Davante Adams, and Rodgers. So I'm very happy to get him in this spot. The big thing I was questioning, and the guy that went right after, was George Kittle. I do like the idea of locking down tight ends like what Tyler did, but I just had an itch to take Jones here. But Kittle is a very good option in this point as well.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see Kittle going at that spot. I've actually seen Kittle go before Kelce in a couple of drafts over the weekend as well. So it is kind of interesting. And like you said, a solid tight end. That's why you're going to see those 2 going in the second round for sure. If we're looking into the third round, you drafted James Conner, and I think that pick is phenomenal. We've been seeing him crawling up the draft boards recently, and if you're looking for a solid running back 2, which is your running back 3 on this particular squad, which is you're going running back heavy this year.
Yeah, you know what? Now that I look at this and unfold, I kind of think that I probably should have gone with Kittle if I knew Connor was going to be there. But I'm pretty happy to lock up these 3 guys. It's a year of huge question marks with COVID, and it's a year of huge question marks with lack of training camp. So there's going to be some key injuries happening very quickly in this year. So you're going to see a lot of people losing their starting running backs very fast. So you can never have enough depth in the position. And it's a reason why I'm kind of glad we're doing this with such a deep bench, is you can really see the dart throws on handcuffs and the dart throws on people who can take huge roles this year. And I think it's a big thing that you need to be eyeing up because The more of these drafts I do, the more I realize it might be better to take handcuffs than it is to take rookie wide receivers. But that can be up for debate.
Absolutely. I think that we were talking a lot about how the running backs were drying up, especially while we were doing the mock draft as well. And that kind of helped Tyler with his decision to go with his next pick, which is Todd Gurley. Of course, you have a special affinity for Todd Gurley because, well, he was a Ram for so long. And then, of course, Gurley's knee being a question mark, that's never a good thing. But going to that high scoring offense, there's a lot of potential, isn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think anybody who's watched the podcast has known I've talked about the fact that this whole offense is all first round picks in the NFL draft. Like we're expecting this offense to take off from what they did last year. And Gurley doesn't have a lot of competition in the backfield. Ito Smith is currently the backup for him. Devontae Freeman's gone, left town. So I think this is Gurley's train to run. I'm not worried about his knee. I know that's kind of what dropped him a bit last year. That might be why the Rams did not choose to stick with him. But I feel like Gurley has a lot to offer, and he's going to want to prove that he belongs in that starting role in it, not only in the NFL, but well, I mean, I don't think he cares about fantasy, but he's gonna put up the stats, and he's gonna be I believe he's going to be a solid RB2, and that's what I put him on my team. So,
yeah, I feel like that's a really good bet. I think that if he is healthy, he's a no doubter RB2 with like some amazing upside for sure. So, I don't hate that pick in the third round, especially the way running backs are this year. My next pick ends up being Adam Thielen. So last year, of course, he had some back problems and whatnot. I feel like he's 30 years old, and for someone who is in a contract year, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for him, especially with Diggs gone. Thielen, regardless of injury, like he's seen amazing target volume over the past 2 seasons. He's seen almost 300 targets between the last 2 years. That's nuts. And if he is healthy, he is a great high-end wide receiver too. He's a great complement to my pick of Julio Jones in the first. And then you've got Melvin Gordon. Of course, there has recently been some reports out of Denver that he's been struggling with the altitude and whatnot. But regardless of that, Melvin Gordon is an amazing running back. He's awesome. And if you're looking at someone who can definitely tote the rock, of course, there's Philip Lindsay there, so apparently he's doing really well. But regardless of that, I still feel like it's going to be a split that's going to favor Gordon. And if you're worried about Gordon not getting the work, well, guess what? Philip Lindsay is super cheap, and he is very available. And spoiler alert, I might have gotten him myself. Yes, I did. And we'll talk about that in a later episode. So definitely, that is a lot of fun. Next up for Tyler, it's your first wide receiver, A.J. Brown. Now, how do you feel about A.J. Brown being your wide receiver one? How do you feel about your team composition at this point?
Well, so I mean, I would have liked to take a wide receiver earlier, but just the way the draft progressed, I just there were those carrots like with the Travis Kelce pick, for example. I decided to go strong on tight ends, so I was prepared to maybe be a little bit lower rated in my wide receiver part of my bench, but I'm not too worried about AJ Brown. I was debating between him and the person that Aetan's probably going to talk about next. I decided to go with Brown just because in Tennessee he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the wide receiver. He's going to get a ton of targets, and as we saw last year, they're going to be downfield, deep targets, which he's capable of bringing in. And he's going to get those touchdowns too. Tennessee is a good team. They have a great defense. Derrick Henry is clearly the main piece in Tennessee, but A.J. Brown is a great compliment. We saw Ryan Tannehill comeback player of the year last year, so I expect him to build on that. And A.J. Brown is just going to benefit from all that.
Oh, yeah, I can totally see that. So you've got him as your wide receiver one, and then we skip on down to Aetan, who's got Calvin Ridley as his wide receiver one. Now, how do you feel about having a wide receiver two as your wide receiver one?
Well, spoiler alert, I don't actually think Calvin Ridley is my wide receiver one. I think the next receiver that I drafted is my wide receiver one. I think Ridley is going to be the second receiver on my team. I like the upside of him. I mean, this guy has Chris Godwin 2.0 written all over him based on what the anticipation and hype was with him coming into the season. He's finished strong, and he seems to have the respect of his team, the respect of his coaches. And I believe on the last podcast when we were talking about him, I said this guy is one of the premier receivers in the league at running routes. Sorry. He's extremely good at it, and he gets a lot of separation on his cuts. So he gets open and he gets a lot of yards because of that. And I think there's lots of room for him to grow, and we're seeing him grow each year, and I'm very excited to have him here.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got Mo Sanu leaving that offense, leaving 100 targets. There's no way Russell Gage is going to be taking all of them. So why not go saddle up, Ridley?
Yeah.
Next up is apparently your wide receiver one, who's Devontae Parker. Of course, we've got Ryan Fitzpatrick starting, or apparently that's what it's looking like out of camp so far. You do have Preston Williams coming back, but when you're looking at Parker, he had 128 targets, and he finished as the number 7 wide receiver last year. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think he's getting a lot of disrespect in a lot of pools and a lot of leagues, and I get why. He came off with an extremely slow start, and then it wasn't until last year that he actually showed something. So a lot of people are sitting there going, you know what, I want to see this guy prove it before I invest draft capital. But here we go. He's 5th round. This is not a huge investment, and the upside of him is just through the roof. I mean, this guy finished as a WR1 last year, and Miami had their wide receiver 3 and their wide receiver 4 both opt out of the season, so the targets are even going to go up even more. I mean, the options are diminishing there. So I think if you're not a big Parker fan, then you got to jump on you just said his name. Who's their other receiver?
Preston Williams.
So if you don't believe in Devontae Parker, then you should be investing in Williams immediately, because one of those two guys is going to put up big numbers. So I especially with Fitzmagic there throwing the ball, I think this guy's an absolute steal for his ADP, and I'm very excited to see him on my roster in the 5th round here. Or is this 6th?
It is the 5th round. So to get a wide receiver 2 with that sort of upside in the 5th round is insane. It's almost unheard of. So that's just a reminder. As much as you're going to see some really good wide receiver values in the earlier parts, the earlier third of your drafts, definitely keep in mind, look for those running backs. You're going to like your team a lot more with more running backs this particular year. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I jump on that? Yeah. I agree exactly with what he's saying. I think the running backs that you're seeing in rounds 4 through 7, these are extremely, extremely high-end talented wide receivers. I think after you hit rounds 1 through 4, the running backs really start to drop off. So I'm really starting to become a huge, huge advocate of, in your first 5 rounds, you want to rock out of there with 3 running backs. If you want to go with a tight end and 3 running backs and 1 wide receiver, that's fine. If you want to throw a quarterback in there, that's fine. But I really think you should be aiming to grab 3 running backs in the first 5 rounds.
And notice how you didn't lock it to specific rounds. It's more of a variable of where you can find the value.
Exactly.
Tyler, how are you feeling about that particular strategy this year?
I agree. I somewhat agree to it, although I didn't do that in this draft. Mainly because I was worried about getting the wide receiver position. While it is very deep, the elite talent isn't as deep as we might think. So I didn't want to lose out on the chance of I want to at least have 2 starting wide receivers that I feel comfortable and don't have to worry about and stress over. So that's why I decided I went with wide receiver on my next pick because of that.
Yeah.
But I agree with Aetan to the point where I would say top 6 is where I would say you need 3 running backs.
Okay.
Top 5, if the draft falls that way, absolutely do it. I mean, hey, you could do top 3 like Aetan did in this draft, and I'm sure you wouldn't be too upset about it. So yeah, it all depends on when the value comes to you. But yeah, absolutely, you definitely need to have that running back backup because it's going to get pretty thin midway through your draft, and then you're going to be wishing you took some more. So in talking about that, I chose to go with a wide receiver, and that is DK Metcalf. This guy is a rookie.
Which is a great pick.
It's a great
Oh,
pick. Yeah.
Great
thank you.
pick.
Yeah, I was debating between him and Cortland Sutton. I went with him. I like his physicality more. I like the fact that he could play as a tight end type of player, but he could also get deep. So he has that versatile dual threat kind of ability. Like he's a big guy, but he can get downfield quickly. Like, I mean, that's the thing you love about a wide receiver. So in Seattle, there is Tyler Lockett to always take targets away. But you got to remember, so Seattle's defense is they're not looking great this year. I think their offense is going to be putting up a ton of points, and they're going to be trying to get those points quickly, which means whether you go Lockett or Metcalf, you're going to be getting big numbers and big deep looks every single game. And Russell gets the ball to his receivers. Like, I mean, as a Rams fan, I hate to admit it, but Russell gets the ball where he needs to go. So if
So good.
if he's got a huge target like Metcalf out there, I'm trying to get a piece of that. So yeah, so I'm pretty happy with him as my wide receiver too. Looking at my team, so I got 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and Travis Kelce. I'm very happy with that, and I mean, you'll see later that I go pretty running back heavy just to back it up, kind of
Mhm.
to cover what Aetan was saying, just in case I need something in the flex or on 2 starters get a bye week. But where I am, I'm pretty happy with what I have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
and-
I would agree. I love your start. I think it's a great start. Just
Yeah,
wanted
definitely a
to
great
jump in
start.
there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great start. You're talking about a wide receiver who's 6'4", 229 pounds,
Yeah,
and
there you go.
not a lot of people remember this, but he actually broke the rookie receiving record for receiving yards in a playoff game last year with 160 yards in a playoff
Not
game versus the
not
Eagles.
bad.
Not
Yeah.
too shabby.
Not
And
bad.
he's a rookie. It's like,
Yeah.
so what is his sophomore season going to look like with someone like Russell Wilson throwing him the ball? I think that's fantastic. Speaking of people who had really great playoff runs, Raheem Mostert ends up being the next player that I draft right there in round 5. And I know that there's a lot of talk about just how this team, the San Francisco team, they use running back by committee. They'll go with the hot hand. But towards the end, I feel like Mostert's playoff performance solidified his role as the running back one. Now, is there going to be times when you're going to have a Tevin Coleman or even maybe a Jerick McKinnon featured in a game? Sure. That's going to happen. Is it difficult to trust an older running back who hasn't done it before? Yes, I get all that. But in this particular spot, I felt like Mostert was a great pick just because when you look at him, he had 8 straight games where he totaled at least 10 carries and 53 rushing yards. That's a great floor for a running back 3, and that's how I drafted him as. What do you guys think of my team so far?
Yeah, I definitely like the Mostert pick. I think he's got a lot of upside for where he's going in the draft. I absolutely agree with that. I'm a little concerned about Melvin Gordon personally myself. You did mention he's not adapting to the air up there. I heard today Philip Lindsay might be calling up boards because they're going to use him a lot more than we originally thought. But other than that, other than that, you did a good traditional 3 running back, 2 wide receiver start. I mean, that's going to set you up for the rest of the draft where you could have a little bit more leeway. So that is a smart way to do it, I think.
Yeah, and I wish I took advantage of that leeway a little bit more as a spoiler alert for the next episode, but we'll definitely get into that in the next episode. So really quick, let's just go ahead and run down. Let's start with Aetan. Who were your 5 picks?
I started with Alvin Kamara at running back, Aaron Jones at running back, James Conner at running back, and then I followed it up with Calvin Ridley on receiver and Devontae Parker on receiver. And I got to say, this is a very, very good start. I really like this start.
Excellent. And then Tyler, go ahead and name your players.
All right, so I got a rookie running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my RB1. Getting a ton of points in my tight end position with Travis Kelce. Going with my man Todd Gurley as my RB2. And then I drafted back-to-back wide receivers, A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. So I'm very happy with this start. I'm definitely, you're going to see in the next episode, I'm going to go running back heavy just to get that depth in that position for me. And yeah, but yeah, I'm pretty solid here, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And then for my team, I went Julio Jones in the first, Josh Jacobs in the second, Adam Thielen in the third, Melvin Gordon in the fourth, and then Raheem Mostert in the fifth. That leaves me with, like Tyler said, a very, very traditional setup of 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers to start my draft. So, yeah, that is it for this particular episode. But the next one, we're going to go through rounds 6 to 10. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching the CANAM Fantasy Football Podcast. Join us in our drive for 500 subscribers, and you could win a signed Amari Cooper jersey. Are you new to the channel? Give us a like, subscribe, and click the notify bell. It helps a ton for a new channel like ours. We're going to have a random draw for a signed Amari Cooper jersey shipped anywhere in North America. So go ahead, click subscribe, and thank you for watching the CANAM Fantasy Football Podcast.